Okay, so let's do chapter 4 from phase 3. Okay, so we're talking about cottages and recreational market. Okay, so seasonal cottage. Obviously, it's not winterized structures using during the summer. Okay, so you might winterize it, you might not. It's better to winterize it so you don't have problems when you come back. You don't have bursted pipes and all that sort of stuff. So the cottages that are seasonal are usually on the borders of a lake or river, and they're much more expensive, and they're really big right now, as you might have noticed. So you might see all these ads for Muskoka or border of Peterborough or Collingwood, and you'll see all these cottages that are, set right on the lake and the river for people to go boating. They have soft sand usually at the bottom, really clean, very, very nice, and clean air. So now the other one is a winterized or a year-round cottage, so that it's kind of constructed into a different fashion. Now that cottage will basically allow you to use it during the winter as well, so it's built for all seasons. It's very good for people that are using it for full-time and also in like a retirement mode, so they can go up anytime they want to, literally, and just take a break. Okay? Now country homes are the big farm bungalows that you see in North Brampton when you go much north, and you'll see bungalows on a big huge piece of land. That's a country home, and they're usually kind of set in that way so that you can have more solitude, so much more quiet time. It's much more relaxed, less traffic, less noise, and also less accessibility to the city facilities. Okay? But you can also achieve country properties that are in short distances away at the same time. You don't necessarily have to drive far away. Okay? And now there's also chalets, which are designed for winter sports. So chalets are very common in Vancouver, near Whistler, where we have a big ski area. You'll also see chalets in near Blue Mountain, close by to us, or even
Small
Muskoka.
homes.
Sorry?
Small homes? These are small homes?
Chalets are winter sports, kind of like little mini homes that might have a hot tub in the back, but they're situated close by to the facilities of skiing and snowboarding
Okay.
or other winter sports. So chalets are designed for that. Chalets are kind of like the American townhomes. So they look like little homes in a little park area, and then they have a common room. And that common area is where they have like a restaurant, and they have an area for, like a fireplace where people can get together before they go to the chalet and go to sleep.
Okay.
So that's the structure of a chalet. Okay, they can also be condominiums. They can also be owned as timeshare or co-ownerships, depending where they are. Okay, and then you also have like hobby farms, which is another version of a cottage-style property. These are great for like kennels. It looks like a home. It looks like a country home usually, but in the back they have training areas for dogs or something like that, or like a kennel area, or they might be growing like a limited crop. Like they might be growing just just like soybean or something like that, just like a particular crop of some kind. Okay. So now you're also looking at the construction of the cottages. The structural movement is completely different. So cottages comply with the interior building code, but they suffer from the old structures. Obviously, can suffer from many defects and problems and deficiencies, and those are because there's inadequate or things that have been installed in the past that were insufficient in size, like the footings. The piers could be deteriorated from a too large span of time. The roof construction or the pitch sometimes might be too low, and that's going to cause the sagging, and the low pitch is also going to lead to heavy snow causing ice damage as well. Okay? So depending when you look at an age of a cottage, there's a whole bunch of other issues that apply. All right? Now, there's decks and porches involved, as you know, and that can obviously add a load to the property, or it could be an improvement. It all depends. Now, the drainage, because they're on low lands, they have usually a lack of drainage to get out of the place, and that can usually lead to like erosion or damage around the moisture and erosion around the side of the structure. So drainage is also another concern for health reasons as well. So you're usually hoping a cottage is got its own maybe its own kind of septic tank or something like that to make it healthier. And septic cleaning, there's versions of it that can help it stay a little bit more healthier. So that's one concern that you might have, but if you go to larger new construction cottage areas, they're actually designed completely different, and their drainage system is built like the city almost, because they're building big houses in those areas. Now, when you do your own work on your own cottage, you still need to take the appropriate permits and approvals, but a lot of times people don't, and then you'll see the lack of quality and defects that come into the future, that come into play. Okay. Now the wood stoves, they have to be inspected by WETT, which is the Wood Energy Technology Transfer. Okay, so just so you're aware of that. Now winterization is that some of the cottages cannot be winterized. Some of them are not insulated. They don't have vaulted ceilings. They're not very cost effective in the construction to put in the insulation properly because it's not designed that way. Now, water and septic systems may not be properly winterized because the pipes may freeze during the winter, and that's a major concern that I mentioned earlier when we first started talking. So you also want to think about unheated areas like floors that are above the crawl space. They might not be insulated as well because usually there's very tiny space between that storage area and the floor. Crawl space is usually in the basement. It could be like a half a basement, for example. So sometimes the area in the basement of a cottage is mainly designed for strictly storage and the washer dryer. So it might have a half size full basement and a half crawl space. And because that crawl space, there might be more concrete involved, so there's not like insulation between the floor and above that crawl space on the upper level. Okay, so that's a concern about winterization that you'll have. And you also have to consider retaining walls. So these are often used for shore areas and driveways due to challenging water terrain. So based on how much water flow during seasons, rain, and all of that is flowing down towards the property or away from the property, that's going to determine how much of an issue you're going to have down the line. Okay. So water wells and water disposal. There's two laws that are effective and regulated by the ministry. Now, the Ontario Water Resources Act and Safe Drinking Water. These are well contractors are licensed, and they monitor, maintain, prevent the contamination of the wells. So you have basically the water that's basically transmitted in sufficient quantity, and it also it's being cleaned at the same time. So the well contractors that are licensed would monitor that it's regularly maintained, or you can also opt for water like tank systems, and you can bring those in and have your own water system that's supplied from a supplier, like in the big water bottles, the 19-liter ones.
Yeah.
Right? You can also do that as well. So the water sources that are coming in from for most cottages, they're either wells or they're drilled, or they can be bored. So they're either drilled or bored. The drilled wells are smaller pipes, and the bored wells are 2 to 3 feet diameter and much more shallow. Okay. So the shore well is located near the water's edge, so the risk of contamination is way higher, and water purification equipment is typically installed. So you have to keep in mind that so the closer you are to the water, the more contamination is likely, and hopefully there's a water purification equipment that's already been installed to protect people from that harm. So you have to look at those things, particularly, especially if you're very close to the water. If you're like a lot of cottages, they edge right on they back right onto the water.
So drilled board valves.
Yeah, so the drilled is the thinner one. The drilled is the thinner pipes, and then your 2 to 3 feet diameter of the actual pipe is your board, and it's a lot more shallow.
Okay, that's why more chance of contamination was wider.
More chance of contamination if you're on the water's edge.
Okay.
Not necessarily from the piping. So you really want to have a very high quality water purification system that is typically installed close to the property that's edging to the water. So that would be really important to avoid that contamination.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so contamination and testing, the next topic. You have two factors. One is poor construction, which we talked about. So you can have contamination because you don't have a water purification system, or the way it's already exiting the property it wasn't properly constructed, right?
Yeah.
And then the water surface from arising from the drainage problem, so the way the property is situated or was constructed initially, that could be a big problem. So you continuously want to do some bacteria testing. So you want to basically take 3 samples within 3 weeks, and then you can actually do the test adequately. And you want to do these a few times a year. 1 to 2 times a year is usually enough.
3 samples from 1 to 3 weeks apart.
Yep, absolutely. So let's say you want to do 3 tests. You want to do it over the span of maybe 9 weeks, 6 to 9 weeks.
Okay.
Right? So do you do it every 2 to 3 weeks, each test? Because you want to really make sure that there's a difference in the testing results, right? Because you want to give it some time to see what is formulating during that time.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we look at the preventive measures, what you want to do is, it says openings to the well must be really sealed. So you want to have a really watertight cap. And then the well casing should be visible to ensure accessible for repair work. So the well casing should be situated so that you can see it for repair in case it needs repair, and it should be very, very tight, and it should be completely sealed. So any openings to the well, completely sealed, completely tight, and then the well casing that's needed, if there's any repair needed, that well casing should be easily visible and easy to access for repair work. So you know what you want to think of? You know, you ever seen that snorkel equipment? You know, when you put on that mask and the pipe goes right outside so you can see it above the water? So it's that kind of a concept where you're like looking at something and you can visibly see it when you need it, and you can go there and repair it as it needs to be. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, the well disinfecting is disinfecting. You're typically using chlorine, right? Which is basically like a bleach. So it's done for wells, springs, pumps, and pipes. It's the final step after you want to do all the disinfectant in the construction. Hopefully it's correct and all the samples are done. The water can also could be boiled, and while that time is, you know, under correction or under construction or whatever repair. So you can boil water to kill bacteria, but you can't essentially kill the chlorine per se by boiling it. Okay? So when you're disinfecting the well, you typically will use chlorine because it's the strongest bleach chemical out there for that purpose to go into water, and then you really want to make sure that it's boiled so that all the bacteria is also destroyed as well.
Okay, so you want to put chlorine, then you boil it.
Yeah. So private water treatment is pretty much, you know, the systems that you use in your home. Chlorine is mixed with water when it's taken from the well, and that's what we call, like, that's what's close to our tap water in Brampton, right?
Yeah.
And when you use reverse osmosis, now this is the cleanest and the best water you can ever drink. Okay? So this water basically, it removes all the solids and minerals from the water supply. Okay? So the membrane that's in there, it'll force the water to kind of filter itself in a way. And what's going to happen there is it's going to allow you to have the cleanest water completely. It's going to have everything that's going to be out of it. You're drinking pure water at that point. Reverse osmosis is the best water to drink.
So this is a procedure to clean the water? That's what we call reverse osmosis?
Yeah, you know when you have a water tank, you've ever seen those water tanks that go in the basement, the 3 tanks?
I have in my kitchen, yeah.
Yeah, so you've got a mini version, that's a reverse osmosis.
Okay.
And you can get a bigger version that goes in your basement, and then it cleans all the water, even in the shower, even in the sink. If you go to certain hotels like Starbucks, Tim Hortons, Marriott hotels, they all use these commercial versions of reverse osmosis. You could turn on the tap water, drink it, and it's completely clean. And the water you shower with, it makes your skin feel silkier because there's no contaminants or chlorine in it sticking to your skin. You'll notice that it's a lot lighter on you, and your hands even feel a little bit more silkier, almost like as if you still have soap on them.
Okay.
Okay? So you'll notice a massive difference when you use reverse osmosis water, and also you'll be much healthier as well when you're drinking this water.
Oh, really?
So that's why our Tim Hortons taste better, because they use that water. So does Starbucks, and so does Denny's, and so does all the Marriott hotels out there. That's why there's such a difference in the taste of the coffee.
Oh, okay. Got the water, yeah.
Yeah, if you actually use reverse osmosis water to make tea, you'll see the difference if you use tap water and that water. There'll be a massive difference in the taste.
Yeah, I do that because I have in the kitchen. That's
Yeah, so you already know there's a massive difference.
Yeah.
Completely different.
Even drinking taste is totally different, yeah.
Totally different, much nicer and smoother. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you have sewage and septic tanks. Okay, you know what a septic tank is basically?
I read about it, yes.
Yeah, septic tank is basically like a system that's outside the home or underneath the home, depending how the home was built. And basically, it's a tank that will take in all the, the water that goes in from the flushing and the, leaving of the home, draining it out. So everything that drains out goes into that system. And then what happens is after a couple months, some truck will come by and pull it all out and clean it out and take it away. Do you understand?
Oh, so all your fresh water goes there,
right?
And then clean after. Okay,
right. Exactly.
Just for sewage, it's not for drinking. We don't use septic tank for a septic system for drinking, right?
It depends how you structure it. You'll have like a water system in there that will release the water to drink, and then you'll have one that drains right into the septic system to go out. It all depends on how the house is constructed. It all really depends. So it says that the life expectancy of the septic system or the tank is 25 to 30 years.
Yeah.
So it's got special filters. They use imported soil. They use it's by an approved system before building it. For a new septic tank system, you need a permit, and then there's a certificate of installation, and then it's approved. Then it's like put in officially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it's a very, very interesting system, but very handy in country properties. That's where it's most common.
Common, yeah.
Yeah. So you have Waterfront Improvements as the next topic, which is Public Lands Act. Okay, it's the Ministry of Natural Resources, MNR. Now the waterfront cottage owners, they have constructed maybe boathouses, docks, or other improvements on the bed of the lake, and that is not owned. Okay, so that's Public Lands Act, where those
are owned by Ministry of Natural Resources?
Yeah, no person without a permit can carry out any kind of mineral exploration or industrial operations on the public lands. They can't construct a building structure or clear any public lands or fill any shorelines either. So basically, mineral exploration is where you're looking for gold or diamonds or you're looking for oil. You can't do any of that stuff because it belongs to the Crown. That land belongs to the Crown. So you actually, before you build your boathouse or a dock, you have to get a permit from MNR, the Ministry of Natural Resources. So you're going to get that permit, and then you can go ahead and then start having it installed. But there's conditions to it. So it says that for a boat lift or marine railways where the water body is less than 15 square meters, you have to look at what the issues are in terms of the footing before you put it in. So the total service of the curb on the waterbed is more than 15 square meters. Then you might have to have it covered or whatever the case is. It all depends on the situation. You can't interfere with your neighbor's property in any case, in any of these circumstances whatsoever. Does that make sense, or do you have any questions about that?
Yeah. No, it makes sense, yes.
Okay. So any related activities, it says removal of material from a lake, river, stream, or pond. The permit is not required for installation of cable, water line, or a heat loop for private use. So the permit's required for boat channels or swimming areas, cable, water lines, or heated loops for commercial purposes. And you can't remove any rocks from the shorelines until you have a granted permit from MNR, your Ministry of Natural Resources. Okay, and then the cottage property, obviously, you probably know that you can access it from a public road or a private road or whatever the case is there. If the road is private, then you have to probably bear a cost. If the road is public, then it's open year round and maintenance might be required or provided. If the cottage is on the island, where a car can be parked and the boat can be docked, then it's not an issue at all.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So zoning requirements, you have to have a minimum setback, high water mark, boathouses, the ports, the docks, the waterfront decks, and total coverage all have to have the appropriate setbacks. So zoning bylaws are very restrictive because they're in favor of environmental protection. So as long as you're not leaping over to remove and destroy a lot of environment while you're constructing, the zoning bylaw will permit you to do the bare minimums to keep the environment safe and clean. That's the goal anyways here. Okay. So services, so say like hydro, for example. Hydro is going to provide you 30 meters of free wire from the last pole, dedicated from the road allowance. So this is only to make it economically feasible for them. Telephone. Bell Canada, for example, will extend to any existing or new customer. They have no issue. So they'll just extend as long as you want the service and you're willing to pay for it. They'll put it in there. So the cost of it is obviously paid for by the customer as well for Bell Canada. The garbage collection will be done for the nearest landfill site close by. And fire protection. So this is interesting. This is usually done by within the small community of these cottages. It's done by the volunteers in the area. Okay, so it's not usually there may not be a fire station close by, so that can have an impact on your insurance rates as well. So your rates might be a little bit higher if you don't have a fire station close by. And school buses, if that applies, they might be restricted to the public road. So if you're on a private road, that might not work for you at all. Okay.